How do I tell my people to look on Facebook, my family, if they want to look?
They
Just
can't
on the,
until after we're done. We're live now, but it'll be up
okay.
on YouTube
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
within an
All
hour
right.
after we're
Okay.
finished. Well, guys, I want to
All right,
welcome
perfect.
everybody to our Thursday night, our weekly conversations with Commodores. And I suspect a good percentage of you guys recognize the gentleman who's my guest tonight, Reverend Henry Belin in Harlem. Good evening, Henry. It's so good to see you, bud.
Thank you, Bernard. Appreciate it. How you doing, man?
I'm just doing fine. I understand you have some of that just awful snowed in weather up at home, and I hope everybody's safe and warm and just making the best of a situation right now weather-wise.
Yes, sir. Look, we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can at this time. We've had before today 19 inches, and all we had all last winter was 3 inches. So yeah, we've had, and the temperature's been so low, it's all ice.
Mhm.
So it hadn't
That probably
really
makes it
melt.
even more dangerous. But Henry, we got folks already rolling in, already wanting to share some love with you. So let me give you some names from the past. We got Aristotle Kirkland.
Oh
We got
wow. Hey,
Harold Collins. Dwayne Jones says to tell you hello. Billy
Dwayne.
Smith. Billy
Oh,
Smith, one of the Keystone cops.
yes,
Let's
sir.
see.
Took good care of
And
us.
we got a bunch of folks who are in
Hey
here.
everybody.
And
Hey
as they
everybody.
roll in, I'll let you know who they are, okay?
No problem.
Well, for those folks who haven't kept up with you on social media or in real life, as I like to say, tell folks a little bit about yourself and your beautiful family and what you're doing these days.
So I am now a resident of New York City, and been here. Oh, wow, been here since a good long time, over 20 years now.
Yeah.
And I am pastor of a church here in the city in Manhattan, a church called First A.M.E. Bethel Church. Church itself is 201 years old this year. We've been in the same spot. We got erected a nice building back in 1912, 1913. Got a wonderful group of people, congregation, who I love, who I'm proud to share with and serve. So I'm here with my wife of 21 years plus. I'll be 22 in August, and our three sons. I have a 16-year-old and twin 14-year-old boys, all boys.
And I know you got some athletes in that family. How are they doing sports wise? What do they play?
They trying to play a lot of things. They play football, basketball. One of them plays baseball. Um, One of them did soccer, and they used to play ice hockey. So a lot of things a little different than when I grew up. But
I
yeah,
was
we
going
have
to
a good time.
say, did you ever play ice hockey when you were a kid?
Never even hit an ice rink. Went to the roller rink, but not the ice rink.
That's right. That's right. Well, Henry, share with us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and what sports did you play as a kid?
So I grew up in Nashville. I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but as a child, I moved to Nashville. And I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and went to Whites Creek High School, and great school. My class my freshman class is the very first class that went through the school 4 years. It was a brand new school when it opened my freshman year, and just loved it. Those high school years were incredible. Great group. We had 405 persons in my graduating class, and we still are, kind of close. It's funny. We're getting ready to plan our reunion next year. It's a big reunion. I'm just saying it's big. So, and I was talking with some of them not too long ago. Grew up in Nashville, and I played football. I played basketball, mostly on the bench, and I wrestled my freshman year, and I threw the shot put and discus in track.
Wow.
So
Henry, when did you hit your growth spurt as a kid?
I think mine was kind of steady. It was kind of steady all the way. When I was 13, I was already wearing a size 13 shoe. So my dad had to go to find me some decent dress shoes. He went to Atlanta. He traveled, and he found this store where athletes went to and got their shoes. And so he actually would bring me some back because all we had was Genesco in Nashville, and they had those wing tips, with the little dots and holes in them, wingtip shoes. And he thought they looked a little old for me, so he tried to help me out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We got some more folks that want to say hello to you. Tim Bryant says to tell you
Oh,
hello.
wow,
It's
the
been a long
man.
time.
That's the legend. Yes, sir.
OJ Fleming is watching with us.
OJ, yeah.
One of your Carmichael neighbors, TP, Tony Piercy, says to tell you hello.
Yes, sir. TP and Boo would keep up trouble.
You
Jesse
think?
Cofield and them, they be keeping up trouble playing cards at night.
They're legendary for those games.
Joe Gentry, that's right.
Ed Parrish.
Hey, Ed.
Oh, we got Dwayne is funny. He calls you guys creek dogs, you, Shelton Quarles, and Robert Davis.
Yep. Yep. And Kenny Pulse. Kenny Pulse between me and Shelton.
That's right. Kenny Pulse was in my signing class.
Yeah, that's right.
And we got calling in from the Dominican, Derek Sartor.
Hey, now look, let me tell you something, Bernie. If you like ribs and barbecue, the best ribs and barbecue you're ever going to have is made by Big D. Big D's Barbecue there, and the word is Suta in Dominican Republic. He's got the best beach barbecue you ever want to eat.
Oh, I've been
gone down
following him on social media for quite a while. He and I FaceTime back in December. Yeah. Man, I wish I could go there. Wow. More folks are rolling in for you, Henry. Edie Johnston Kelsey, Brian Diggs.
Oh. What's up, B?
Big D says he still remembers cutting your parents' grass in Nashville.
That was something else, but that's right. He did. He did cut.
I suspect the statute of limitations is passed, but I don't know if that was hazing or not. But we'll move on to something else. Henry, when you were a kid in high school and you were working on your different sports and your crafts, when was it that in your mind that you felt like you could compete on the collegiate level? What was going on in your development? What were you hearing from your coaches, your family, the college recruiters? Take us a little bit through your recruitment process.
So the strange thing about it is I was recruited by a few schools. My first recruiting process, there was a guy, coach at Tennessee State by the name of Big John Merritt. And he came, met my parents, and told me that my number in high school was 72. And I got it because of Ed Too Tall Jones, who was playing for the Dallas Cowboys.
Sure.
So he had coached Ed Too Tall Jones, and he said I had a swim technique at the time, and I did pretty good in high school. And he said, I can coach you. You could become like Ed Too Tall if you want to keep going. So the other thing is I love school. I think I graduated number 10 out of the 400, in high school. So I wanted to be a doctor. So I was kind of tired of football. I did football to basketball to track year round. I never had a break. So I wanted to be an engineer and wanted to go into biomedical engineering and be a doctor. I said, I probably don't want to do pro and all that. I think I've done enough of this. It was good. So I actually went to Vanderbilt as a National Merit Scholar to to go be a biomedical engineer. And I was accepted into their program. Matter of fact, Vanderbilt, was the main school, only school I really wanted to go to, because they had a good biomedical engineering program. I got another offer from a school called RPI, Rensselaer Poly at Tech, which is way up in Troy, Massachusetts, I think. And they had a biomedical engineering program. Also Georgia Tech, but they didn't have biomedical, so I decided to stay at Vanderbilt and go. And I was familiar with Vanderbilt because I won when I was a eighth grader. I won a Vanderbilt scientific fair, got first place in the computer division. So I think Vanderbilt just kind of stuck with me for that.
And when did Coach Mack or whoever was recruiting Nashville start contacting you?
So here's the piece. They had contacted my coaches, but I said, I didn't want to play. I wasn't interested in playing. So I came straight academic. So, right. But here's what happened. I ended up being close on the hall with all the football players. Mm-hmm. I met back then a guy named Carvel Massengale, another guy named Arnaz Perry, Kermit Sykes, Mark Whaler, Mark Whaler. And, we were all talking and used to hang out and things. So I used to hang with them and we would laugh. And I was starting to get bored. So I said, let me go work out. So I started going work out and I joined the track team because I was throwing the shot in the disc. I said, okay, I can do track. And I was going to engineering school. I said, I need time to study and, do this. So I played track. I threw the shot in the disc that first year. So by the time the indoor track, that was indoor track during the winter. One day when I was working out, the weight coach at the time, Doc Crease, saw me. He said, what are you doing? I said, I didn't know him. I said, sir, I'm here because I'm on the track team. What the you doing on the track team? And he used some nice language. And so I told him and I kept working out. So he kept seeing me and he said, you're wasting your time. What are you doing? Why do you do football? I said, I was bored. So lo and behold, I think he and Kermit and some others took me to Coach Mack. And they said, you ought to think about, trying out. And I knew some of the guys already. So that spring, I went and tried out and, made the team.
Gosh, I never knew that story at all. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So really, Doc Crease is who recruited you.
Yeah, he saw me in the weight room. He said, no, you too big just to be on track.
And you started working out with the team. Now, did you go out that spring and
yes.
and go through the spring ball?
Went through spring ball. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's why I learned a whole lot. There was a tackle guard by the name of Rob Monaco. Mm-hmm. Rob Monaco was lined up beside Will Wolford. Mm-hmm. And one was known as the tractor, and the other was the truck, But and then there's another guy who's center named Bill Fletcher. So that offensive line, they were big and strong and nasty and mean. Mm-hmm. And so I was learning against them because I was a defensive tackle. But the funny thing is, I had lost weight. I was down like 215, 220 pounds, trying to be a tackle. At that time, we had a guy named Carl Jordan and from Knoxville. I'm looking dead at him. He's in my class. Steve. I'll call it in a minute.
Wyndham?
No. John Wyndham came as well. But Steve's dad also played at Vanderbilt.
Somebody who's watching, throw in the comments Steve's last name.
Yeah. So
Steve Wade.
Steve Wade, that's right. The Wade. That's what we call him, the Wade.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne.
These guys were like 280, 70. So I was trying to, play beside them. Then by the next year, David Worm and Eric Snyder and a guy named Richard Stahl came in and so forth. They were, except for Richard, they were bigger, and they used to laugh at me saying, "You got to get some weight on you."
Mhm.
And so Doc would make me stop eating, stop drinking, and they took me to the athletic table. He put 2 steaks in front of me and potatoes, and they used to try to get me, bigger so I could. He said, "You're gonna get blown away." But working with Monaco and Will Wolford, eventually I became a scout team leader. That's what I was. I was a scout team leader, and I learned a lot with them. I go and watch film. Coach back then was a guy named Coach Mickey. I'm looking at him, but he was the coach, and then a guy named Rusty Russell came. So I used to always go and watch film. I knew how to watch film and learn the tricks. And so what they taught me was to go and watch the opposing defensive players, so I could learn their moves and also help our offense. So I would come in, and it was my sophomore year. Monaco and Wolford would slam me, would wear me out all the time, and they said, "You're gonna be a scout team All-American," But they had me push it. I got to play Reggie White. I got to play as though I was Reggie White, as though I was the guy from Virginia Tech,
Bruce Smith.
Bruce Smith. Yeah, I learned their moves, and that's what I was told to do in practice. That's what I did, and so I remember and Dwayne remembers this. I got to dress, the games because I was a scout team All-American, so to speak. But that's really what helped me develop into being a player.
Well, I was going to say, you got a world-class education when it came to SEC football, going up against those guys. Mickey Jacobs is
Mickey Jacobs, yep, Coach Jacobs.
Thank you guys for commenting. We got Wade Pretty just joined us.
Hey, Wade.
Jason Tomachek just joined us.
Yeah.
Let's see, any others who've rolled it? Jim Arnold, Coach Gene Wyndham. So thank you guys for all showing up.
Wyndham. Yep.
Talking with Henry Belin. Now, Henry, wasn't also Marvin Thomas about your same year?
Marvin.
Year review?
We used to call him Marvelous Marvin.
Marvelous Marvin.
Marvelous Marvin would always be in that weight room. And we trying to figure out, was he in the weight room just to get strong or just to build that body of his? He was always lifting. Doc would be on Marvin, and Marvin would go in there, just lift up, and get huge.
Well, I've got a wonderful picture that I think I've already posted in our group of Marvin and Coach Bates face to face in the weight room, just getting a pump. It's an awesome.
I know it is.
Well, Henry, you were a couple of years ahead of me. And by the time I came through, you were no longer on scout team. You were in my face because I was on scout team.
Right.
Between you and Chris Gaines and Worm and all of you guys, I got a real education on the scout team those first couple of years. But what was it about playing defensive end or defensive tackle that you did enjoy?
Hitting. I love delivering the blow instead of receiving it. And having worked against, someone like Will Wolford and Monaco and them for those years, they taught me how I had to learn to stay low. Coach Shepard, when he came along, told me how I had to keep my feet moving all the time and, keep my hands in and being able to shed the block. My responsibility was to stop up the hole and give somebody like Chris, Gaines or Marvin or Joe Gentry time to come there and, make the play. I was just being there and hold the play and keep my butt low and don't let anybody drive me back. And
let me ask you this, Henry. Shoot the hands, your feet will follow. You ever heard that before?
Coach Shep.
Coach Shep says to tell you hello, Henry.
Is it? I understand Coach Shep got one of the best restaurants in Clarksville.
Anybody wants to stop by, y'all just go see Coach Shep, and I'm sure he'll treat you to a good meal. Well, Henry, what did you?
Right.
Go ahead.
My plug just came out. Okay, I'm good.
All right, bud. We got time.
Okay.
Other than having to go against Wolford and Monaco and all those big guys, what did you least like about playing defensive end, defensive tackle in college?
Oh, I think, it took me a minute to gain weight.
Mhm.
I didn't naturally gain it, as fast as some others. And so, the other thing, I was a exercise induced asthmatic. So I always had they sent me to, something was wrong. My sophomore year, I was doing all the training, everything, I'd made everything, but I was always having shortness of breath. So they sent me to an allergist. And matter of fact, the nurse's husband was the quarterback named Fred Fisher. I'll never forget that because he was a quarterback at Vanderbilt. And it turned out that I have this, what they call exercise induced asthma. And I didn't have certain kind of things your blood's supposed to have. So they had to give me some kind of, medications, to help stabilize my bronchial tubes during a particular time. So I mean that was the kind of hardest part until I kind of got that under maintenance, and knowing. And then, once that was straight, it was okay. But I can't imagine anything I didn't like. I learned a whole lot. I mean, I learned about life and learned about, struggle. It was all good.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. With you taking that year off or the first semester off, and you were a student first. I know you were always a student first,
Mm.
but doing track and field and then getting recruited in the spring. That first semester in school, when you're getting accustomed to being in college, when you're getting accustomed to the workload academically, what was that like for you? Did you go to any of the games, the football games during that fall, or did you really stay away from the sport?
No, I went. I went because, like I said, I lived in Branscombe. I
Mhm.
live in Branscombe, right down the hall and on the hall with a lot of the players. It was basketball players, football players. So we were friends, and so I went to the games. I sat in the student section and supporting. My freshman year is when they had that wonderful Hall of Fame season.
Mhm.
Um, and Witt was quarterback,
Mhm.
and that's the first time I saw the shovel pass that he used to throw. I think Watson Brown was offense coordinator at the time before he left to go to Cincinnati.
So that would have been
And
the fall of '82, I believe.
fall of '82, exactly. Yeah, so I enjoyed. I came out, supported the team, and was there, as with them. Yeah, I went to the games and had a good time. And we talk. The guys would tell. I go and listen to the stories about what they did or did not do in the games and how excited they were, and listen to those who was, because they were freshmen who didn't get in the game, and say, "Oh man, I wish I got in." And so it was fun.
Well, from an academic standpoint, I know you were a very good student in high school, but any college level academics is going to be some adjustment period. And
Yeah.
for students at Vanderbilt, it can be a real adjustment period. But what about your transition academically? Were you able to pick it up pretty good, or what was that like for you?
Well, so two things. One, I'll tell you this part first. My freshman year grades
Mhm.
were good enough to help carry me when I may have messed up a little bit later.
Uh-huh.
But having said this, it was a major adjustment.
Mhm.
I was just because I made good grades, I probably was not the best student who did not have necessary good study skills. Uh, and because of that, I was kind of kid who go to class, look at the board, and figure out what to do and develop my own formulas and do it. And that it worked for me all this time. And so we got to this one class, Chemistry 102, Professor Hall's chemistry class. And it's a big chemistry class with hundreds of kids in there. And so I'll never forget. I knew the chemistry. I had an A coming out of high school in chemistry, so it was no big deal. It was things I'd done before, and he'd do it, and I'd follow, and I thought everything's fine. So the difference is Dr. Hall would give out all on his syllabus about 100 practice problems to do. Well, me and some other colleagues, and I won't call their names to not say anything, we went to class, but we weren't necessarily doing the homework. We were not doing his practice problems that he suggested. I said, there's no need, because on the syllabus, the homework did not count towards your grade. The only thing counted towards your grade was the test and the quizzes. So we went and I took the test, took the quiz, the very first one. I said, oh, this is a little harder than I thought, but it'll be okay. Well, when he comes and back and he hands out the test, this is everybody gonna hear this? Okay.
Yeah.
I got a 28 out of 100 in chemistry. I'd never ever. And that was on the curve. It was a 28. I got points because I signed my name. Whoa. So it was horrible. So I mean, I wasn't the only one. Some others had some rough issues. So I knew then, and he said, the reason I give you all those problems on account is so you can practice, so you could be ready to do it. He didn't have to tell me a second time. I started doing the work and doing the problems and so forth. And, a couple of us got together, and a few athletes got together and were working and doing the work and trying to, get caught up. So when I took the next test, I got a 78 and which was a B on his, that's where I learned about the curve. Yeah. It was a high B on the curve. So that day he called me and two other students up in front of the whole class. I said, what'd I do? And he handed me a rubber band. I was like, what's this for? He said, this is called a snapback award, coming from one of the lowest grades to one of the highest grades. So yeah, I had to get adjusted quick. You had to learn to do your studying, do the work. Later on, once I was a part of the athletic department, they did provide tutors. Now, everyone didn't take advantage of the tutoring, but they did if you wanted it. And we sometimes utilized the tutors when we could. And then they had a computer room over there at McGugin. And to tell you how old this was, they had the old matrix printers where the paper would be on the printer and
that's right,
on the green paper and come up.
Awful noise as it was.
Make that awful noise coming up.
Yep. Now, Henry, were you the type of student? Did you stay up all night? Did you just shut it off at a certain time? Did you study in your room, or did you have a favorite place you like to go and hide? What were your habits for stuff like that?
So I did all the above, but mostly I was a night owl, and few of us would stay up and study. We'd study somewhere on the hall. Sometimes we go to the engineering building and study. A library, we go over to McGugin. Boo Mitchell and I, when he came, had a ritual. We would go to IHOP, about the IHOP around the corner. We go there about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning at IHOP, with our books, studying. And the lady knew we were coming. She'd always have our order ready by the time we came.
Y'all must have been regulars. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you get through that freshman year, you go through spring training, and now that summer going into sophomore year, you're on the roster. You're hopefully fighting for a position. Who was ahead of you in the roster? Who were you trying to compete with to get some playing time?
So that was my first. So that was my sophomore year,
sophomore year,
or freshman redshirt year, so quote unquote.
Your second year.
And at that time, as I said, it was Steve Wade, Carl Jordan. There was John Wyndham, who was he was incredible. He came from Brentwood Academy. He was a strong guy. I think that freshman year, Eric Snyder and Dave Worm came in. So I was playing along and behind most of those guys. And at a time, a guy named Mark Herman, who eventually moved over to offense, he was on defense for a while.
We won't bring it up now, but I've heard many a story about Mark Herman. and
The
some
Herm.
the
There's
Herm,
nothing like the Herm.
in-game antics and things that he did, but that we'll save that for another
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
had you put on weight by this point going into your second year?
No, it was about my third year. Yeah, yeah, going to my third year, I did. Yeah, it was kind of, I was skinny mini.
Well, did you get any playing time, or were you redshirted your second year?
Yeah, so that year, which was Reggie, I didn't get any game time. I dressed 2 or 3 times, but the next year I actually got to dress every game and even got to travel. So that was just super exciting.
Henry, that was the fall of '84 when the team started out 4-0.
4-0, we were number 17 in the country at the time.
Yeah.
Kurt Page was the quarterback, and it was incredible.
Well,
and we
Kurt
met up with Tulane. We beat Alabama.
Yeah.
And then came to Tulane. I said, we're going to go 5-0. And Tulane upsets us at home. The Green Wave. And Mac Brown, Watson's brother, was the coach then.
That's right.
And we just couldn't believe it. The interesting thing was, at that very time, Tennessee State across town was also undefeated.
Oh.
Yeah, they were 5-0 at the time. So, they were 1AA in OVC. And so, some of the players over there would, come and hang out with some of our players, and everybody was pushing each other, hoping we all do well. So
I was going to ask you that, the relationships or friendships with the athletes at Tennessee State. I know that maybe from a fraternity rivalry standpoint or brotherhood, I know that there was a lot of times when Vanderbilt students and Tennessee State, maybe Fisk, maybe some of the other HBCUs in Nashville would get together for those kind of things. But I'm always curious about, did you guys ever work out in the summers together? Or was it really just more during the school year, kind of hanging out on the weekends?
So we didn't get time to hang out during the season because your time was too busy. It was more so during the spring, we could hang. During the summers, everybody had their own individualized programs we had to do with the team. Everybody was trying to make sure we did what we could in terms of getting shape, team wise. So it was mostly social kind of times we had. I think there were some players who used to get together. Skill players used to sometimes get together and just throw and hang with each other at times. But I wasn't a skill player, so I wasn't involved in that.
You're too busy trying to put on some weight.
Yeah, exactly.
On that line. Now, Henry, let's talk about, I always like to find out about the first game action that a player gets in college. Does any particular time or game ring a bell with you or have an impression when you appreciated, man, I'm playing in the SEC and there's 80,000 people in the stands and I'm getting ready to go up against some of the big boys. Tell us about that time experience for you.
Well, I remember the first time I got in the game, we were beating Kansas pretty good. And me and a guy named Mike McDonald.
Casper.
Used to call him Casper, right. We were way down on depth chart and we got to get in the game. And it was the fourth quarter and we were beating Kansas pretty good. I think the quarterback named Mike Norris or whatever. So I got in there and I sacked him. And I was so excited. I jumped up so excited. I say, well, this is real. And see all those people around, up in the stands. It was exciting. I got this sack and Cass was right there, with me. We high-fiving. But when I jumped up, I hit the ref in the mouth and knocked his hat off. I mean, he didn't throw a flag, because it was jubilance.
Right.
Funny story is on that Monday, Coach Mack calls me up in front of the team and gives me a box of cereal, Snap Crackle Pop. He said, "This is called Snap Crackle Pop Award for hitting the referee after he got his sack."
You have a history of some unique awards being given to you as an undergraduate.
Yeah, I did.
Well, what about your first or any of the SEC games playing at?
Let me tell you something. So I was watching the other day. There's a Auburn had this wonderful had a tackle by the name of Tracy Rocker.
Oh yeah.
Tracy Rocker, and I lined up against him because I also got to be on the punt team, so on special teams. Uh, and to know I was playing against some of these guys who were in the papers, guys who've been reading about, and the fact that I could go in the game and help give a spiel to somebody like Carl Jordan, to give a spiel to Steve Wade, who I fully respected, those guys, and that I was on the field playing on the same team with Will Wolford, who was All-American. It was a good, Kermit Sykes, who was a quarterback but switched over to DB. He got hurt his shoulder, I think his freshman year, to DB, and he was an incredible corner. That I was, on the field with these guys who we had worked together. It was incredible. Goo Baby had come by this time. Guy named Everett Crawford, came, a little bit after that. And to be on the field, watch, a Carl Parker, a Chuck Scott, who I'd be hanging out in the dorm with. Watch, when I was a freshman, a guy named Manuel Young, and Keith Edwards. Now, Keith Edwards was kind of a hero in this way. He also was in engineering school, and he was a very serious student. He was an excellent athlete, all SEC. He could catch out that field. He was very serious. He used to have fun, but he did his work. So he was an inspiration when I was a young guy to watch him, succeed, as a serious student, doing his work while being successful on the field. So finally getting to play and hit the field, and knowing that time I had spent at scout team, the time I spent watching film finally paid off, was, it was fulfilling. It was great.
Certainly sounds like you had, and I love to always ask if players did you have any mentors or really folks, whether they're on the team or coaches or even in the classroom, people who you really looked up to try to pattern either your game or your life a little bit after? And I don't know if mentor is the right word, but maybe, I don't like to use the word hero, but just somebody who impressed you enough, that made enough of an impression upon you that allowed you to I kind of like the way he handles himself in these, maybe to pattern yourself a little bit after.
So I had a few people. School wise, there was a couple of professors who I really, took to. Professor George Cook, and the other professor named Ensign Johnson, and they both were in electrical engineering. Uh, they took time with me, and they would challenge me in class, and challenge me even when they were not teaching me, to make sure I was still doing the right thing. Um, uh, you know, they, you know, they watched what was going on in football, and they would talk about that. Say, okay, now let's focus, and this is not representative of what you can do. Now take this back and work on that. So I really appreciated them. They were great on the field itself. Uh, I liked. There was a guy who I lived next to for a while. He just passed. Bob O'Connor. Bob O'Connor lived next door to me, or I lived next door to him in Carmichael Towers when I lived there. And he was incredible. He talked to me at night and give me, stories, and always kind of, encourage. When you're on the scout team, you kind of rub, and, he'd tell you, just keep after it. The other one is Rob Monaco. Monaco, told me he didn't mind me coming strong scout team All-American. He liked it. And he would tell me, he'd come and grab me after practice and say, good job today. That's what I need you to do. That's what I need you to do. And, if days he didn't want, he said, not now. I said, yes, sir. Because I looked up to them.
You knew where
Uh,
you stood with him too, it sounds like.
yeah. Oh yeah. He was incredible.
Well,
And
Henry, Carl Parker says to tell you hello.
hey,
He
Carl.
CP just joined us, and
Yeah,
so did Kenny Cole. So thank you, all of you
yeah,
guys who are spending some time with us tonight with Henry Belin. Henry, let me ask you kind of a little bit of a sensitive subject, but
yeah,
Vanderbilt had only had African American athletes on the football team for about 12 to 15 years by the time your class came through.
right.
And I know that you were recruited by Tennessee State. I know you were from Nashville, and you were not blind to how the ways of the world worked. I know your family was very much in tune with how society worked. So my question is, did you ever have any doubts, any concerns coming to Vanderbilt, which was a pretty, I don't know how to say this, a lily white campus other than maybe some of the athletes? Did that ever pose issues for you when you were at Vanderbilt?
Um, it didn't. I knew what I was walking into
Mhm.
when I went. So, it didn't. It was not um, of major concern at the time because I knew before I got there what was going on. I think at that time there may have been 149 black students in total in all the schools, graduate school in Blair, in med school, the Divinity School, the law school, the business school, the Peabody, arts and science, engineering. It was not that many at all. And so by the time my senior year, there was a group we gotten together, and we put together this called Black Manifesto. And we went, and some of the athletes participated, going up to Kirkland Hall, and sitting in, demanding that they make some changes, because it was not always conducive. One of the main things that we were raising, they would they would work hard to make sure they brought in African American students as freshmen, but they did not work hard to make sure they had all the equipment and to equip and give the support systems needed to stay there. So if you go back and look at the number who were admitted as freshmen, that percentage dropped drastically from those who were able to stay in and graduate. Now, Vanderbilt in days since has come to address that, but that was a major, major, major problem. I mean, there were several guys who came in my class, and in class after me, who did not finish Vanderbilt, and it's not because they did not have the smarts, or they were not surrounded with the scaffolding and with the necessary assistance to help make the difference. And so when we talk about, we had friends at Tennessee State and Fisk, well, that's where more African Americans were. So we travel over there for social reasons,
Right.
as well. To find that, to find more, support, so to
When
speak.
you brought your concerns to Kirkland, were you given an audience to be able to present any of the concerns?
Yeah, I want to leave. There was a wonderful sister named Tanya. She's a lawyer in Atlanta right now.
Mhm.
Was the head of the Black Student Alliance there, and we had the Bishop Joseph S. Johnson Black Cultural Center,
Mhm.
and developed this manifesto to get some new teachers. So at that time, they did. They brought in 3 African American teachers for the Divinity School. They
Mhm.
brought in 2 for the arts and sciences. They elevated one who was already there. So they did. Try to make some adjustments to try to make it better.
And I
But
don't.
at the time, the chancellor at that time was not the he also was not athletic friendly either.
Mhm.
Guy named Joby Wyatt. He wasn't the most.
And we don't have to dwell on this too
Yeah.
long, but I know that that's all part of your undergraduate experience, and I appreciate you sharing that with us
Mm.
because I know it made an impression on you. Because if you're able to recall some of these names after so many years, I know that it's made an impression. But I want to talk about, Henry, when did you decide that Divinity School was going to be in your future, and that's where you were going to head towards as part of your profession?
So I think the latter portion of my the latter portion of my last fall year, while I was playing, I'd already made the decision I wasn't going to go to med school. I was just going to be an engineer. So I picked up an extra major, biomedical and electrical engineering. So
Just picked it up.
yeah, I mean, I like math. So I mean, I love math. So I was doing that, and the same Ensign Johnson who I mentioned earlier, we were talking one day, and he said, Henry, you're good at these circuits and things, and but you're a people person, and you like people. And he happened to know that my father was a minister, and what he revealed to me that day was his father was a Methodist minister, and I never knew that. I've been with him 4 years, almost 5 years, as his student, and so he told me that. He said, you ought to think about sometime Divinity School as well. I said, why would I go to Divinity School? I said, I don't want to be a preacher. That's not for me. And so he started telling me other persons who had gone to Divinity School and what the divinity degree, the breadth of it, and other things you can do with it. And he revealed to me himself, even though he had a PhD in electrical engineering, he himself had gone to Divinity School. So, I talked and we used to meet back and forth. So what I did was I went to the career placement office at the beginning of the spring, and they set me up an interview with the Divinity School dean and the business school dean. I said I was going to do one or the other. So I went, the first interview was with the Divinity School dean, Jack Forsman, on a Wednesday. So I went there and had an interview, and I knew it was going to be hard because as an engineering student, you did not take all the written courses that were required to get into Divinity School. Most of the arts and science classes I took were like contemporary social problems. I took a lot of sociology courses, not a lot of heavy writing courses. So he looked at my transcript and went through the interview, and he said, well, if you want to come, I'll give you a 65% tuition scholarship to start. And if you do well after the first semester, I'll increase it up to 85. I said, wow, I couldn't believe it. So I knew I didn't have everything required to go. So I went and met then with Coach Kramer. Coach Kramer was athletic director. And I told him what it was. And he said, is that what you want to do? Are you sure? He said, have you ever thought about, doing the business or sports management? Because I used to always have conversations with Coach Kramer about sports and things. And he actually knew me from the time I was in high school. I won a Davidson County Academic Scholar Athlete Award, and I sat at his table, and his wife remembered me from that time when I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
So that's how we were close. So he said, look, if that's what you want to do, I'll pay for the rest of it. So he gave me a job in the athletic department to pay for the difference from what I didn't get in tuition scholarship. And I said, what? He said, yeah, that's what you want to do. He said, you're good. I'll give you a job and I'll take care of the rest. So I was like, wow. I didn't even go to the business school interview.
I was just getting ready to
I
say
did
that.
go back to business school. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I did go back and see if he would allow me to do it. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say,
I did
what
go back and see if
were
he
you
would.
doing within the football department?
So at that time, we had what you call the Stadium Club, which was the club over top of the parking garage that used to overlook the football field. So Vanderbilt athletic department owned it at the time. And so they were members of what they call the Stadium Club. And we also used to rent it out for parties. So I became an assistant with the director up there at the stadium club. I go there and work all kind of banquets, work parties. So when the games were going on, I'd be up there. I could see the game up there, and I'd be interacting with all the members of the stadium club.
Wow.
I met a whole lot of people there.
I bet. I bet.
Yep.
Well, gosh, Henry, these stories you're sharing tonight are just awesome. I can't thank you enough for taking us on your journey a little bit. So thank you.
Thank
And
you, Bernie.
we've got just a couple of more minutes, maybe about 2 or 3 more minutes, but I want to know what was your favorite football memory? Do you have a particular play or game or situation from your time at Vanderbilt?
Um, I think uh, one of my favorite memories is when um, we my senior year when Watson Brown came.
Mhm.
We were all excited that Watson was coming. We missed Coach Mack. Coach Mack was cool. We missed it, in transition. Coach Bates was there and, getting us ready.
Mhm.
And Watson Brown came there and, the whole camp was going crazy. I'll never forget, we put this thing up, said 12-0. We're going to be 12-0. So when the season was going and we started losing those games like that, we won one. It was like, whoa. So we had what I call come to Jesus kind of meeting as a team, and to see how guys came together and owned up that we've got to change our attitudes. We got to change our mindsets about who we are, about what we can be. Because if we don't adjust that, then we're never going to be any better. We'll always be the quote unquote same old Vanderbilt. And that was a very honest meeting, just all player meeting, with the coaches in there. And guys really spoke out, from seniors to freshmen. And I really think, it really helped, begin to turn some mindsets,
Yeah.
at that time. That's why I'm kind of excited about, what's going to go on now. It seems like the new Coach Lee, is going to has done a culture shift in the mindsets. If you can get Vandy people to believe that you can win, it's going to happen.
Henry, that was my freshman year, and I remember that meeting well.
Yeah.
It made a huge impression on me. Just
Yeah.
being a freshman, I was redshirted, but just listening to the older guys and how passionate they were, I certainly. But
Yeah.
I can't let you get out of here without sharing a couple of lessons that you learned along the way, whether it was on the football field or not, whether it was in the classroom or just everyday life. Maybe it's something that you like to share with your congregation about life or with your children who probably, knowing teenagers, they just roll their eyes because dad's telling them yet again, this is how it was back in my day.
You do know that, right?
Oh, yeah, I have two myself, two girls.
Yeah, you do know that.
If
Uh,
you've
I
got any
think
words of wisdom, I'd love for you to share them with us.
the athletics itself is great. And, it teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to rely on other persons, that you're not in this by yourself. And it also teaches you responsibility to take care of that which you're responsible for. Because there's no way the team succeeds if you don't do your particular, job. Uh, and it causes you to be resilient, causes you to have to be creative at times. Playing and sports is a lesson, lifelong lesson that teaches you how to deal with people who are of different mindsets. One of the things I said, one thing I liked, we were a team. I don't. Many of us probably had different political views in terms of not as bad as what's going on today, but we had different mindsets, political views. But none of that stopped us from having respect for each other. We could have honest conversations, about our views and about what we thought, but we still respect each other as human beings. And at the end of the day, we still were teammates. and supported each other. And that's the thing. I think being a team, being a part of a team teaches you. You don't always have to agree on everything, but you respect each other, in your humanness, and you can learn to, work together, and still achieve a lot of things together. So, I mean, I learned a whole lot there.
That is one of the beautiful things about sports
Yeah.
and being a teammate. You're absolutely right. You don't have to agree with everything,
Right.
but once you step on, on the field, you're all teammates, you're all brothers, and you're all pulling for the same reason. So, Henry,
Oh, I forgot. I forgot to tell you about my worst moment. That's all. And I know you gotta go. My worst moment. We flew to Kansas. We took a plane to Kansas in '85, I think. Is it? And we went to Kansas, and that's when they had these things called wind shears going on. So our plane went and tried to land inside of Lawrence, Kansas once, and it started shaking. And the guy took off and had to go back around. He comes in again, and it comes down and looks like we're okay, and it starts shaking real violently. He pulls up and goes again. All right, guys, we're gonna try to go one more time. So anyway, I'm sitting right over the wing, and I'm sitting next to Richard Stahl and somebody else, and uh, Steve Wade sitting in front of me, and so everybody's talking, and I'm saying, y'all relax, relax. I'm talking stuff. Just trust the Lord, trust the Lord. Everything gonna be fine. What y'all worried for? It's gonna be fine. So this time we come around the third time. We come in, and when going in, all of a sudden the plane does a 45-degree dip like that. All of us like look. It looked like the wing was like 10 feet, 10 yards off the ground. I don't know what it was, but it straightened up and it went straight up in the air. Guys were barfing. I mean, it was horrible. They took us to the next town and landed. We had to take a bus back to Kansas. Needless to say, we blew Kansas out 40 something nothing the year before. We lost pretty bad.
Wow.
That was
Dwayne,
the worst.
y'all diverted to St. Louis.
Huh?
The plane diverted to St. Louis.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of folks who are watching tonight.
Yeah.
Carl Parker, Edie Kelsey, a whole bunch of folks who were on that same flight.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was the worst moment. But
well, Henry, we've had no bad moments tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Bernie, for doing this. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Stadium Club, next week, I don't know if you guys have looked ahead who my guest is next week, but y'all are going to remember him. You've already mentioned him once tonight, but it's Coach Brad Bates.
Oh, cool.
Be my guest next week, and he's going to have a few stories about the Valentine's Day massacre and the craziness in that parking deck that I will never forget. But thank you guys for sticking around tonight. We just have awesome guests every single week, and that's why I enjoy doing these conversations. So we're going to be back again next week. Y'all have a safe weekend, and anchor down.
Anchor down. Thanks.